Hey, here we are. It's Monday morning, which means it's time for me to go live again, because I do this every Monday morning. So, whams on a Monday morning. Well, people show up, they ask questions about property finance, and I answer them. And I hang around here for about 30 minutes or so. Sometimes it's longer. In recent weeks, it's sort of been stretching to an hour, but that's entirely determined by you, because the questions that you ask and I answer, that it's either shorter or longer, completely dependent on that. So I rely on you guys to provide the content, or at least the base content, and then I build on it with my answers. So got a couple of people saying good morning there. So morning, Clive. Good to see you. So what questions have you got this week? And what can I answer? What can I give you clarity on that maybe you don't have right now? So what's happened in the last week? Well, we had the budget, didn't we? And as predicted, and I suspected, stamp duty holiday didn't end. It didn't fall off a cliff. It got extended, but extended quite sensibly, I think. So the 500 extended until the end of June. That's okay. That makes sense. But what makes even more sense is to taper it back down until it's withdrawn, and unless, of course, they change their mind again. So from September, the stamp duty holiday period drops from the first 500,000 to the first 250,000, and then down to nothing at the end of September. That's the plan anyway. And we know, our experience of the last year is that plans change. So let's see that now. In normal circumstances, you would think that the economy would have bounced back by then if we're out of lockdown. So, the impetus for the stamp duty holiday would be reduced. Quick slurp of tea there. Unless, of course, what precipitates that is a fundamental review of how stamp duty is charged. And we will wait to see on that. The other big change was corporation tax. And there's been this mass rush to buy property in limited companies over the last 5 years to enable you to keep claiming mortgage interest as a business expense. So the cynics among us says, you wait until they'll get everyone into limited companies, or so many people into limited companies, and then they'll do something to make a tax grab on that. Well, to a degree they have, with corporation tax projected to rise to 25% from the current 19%, which of course is a clear reversal of the last 10 years of policy of making it a low UK low business tax economy. But of course, you're going to have to be a fairly substantial landlord to be paying the 250,000. Sorry, to be paying the 25%, because it's pegged at 250,000. So unless you're turning in annual profits of 250,000, you won't be paying 25% tax on all of those, on all your profits. First 50,000 still stay at 19%, and then there's a tapering above 50. Haven't actually read how that's going to work yet. So it could be that it's just you pay 19% on the first 50,000 profits and 25% above that. Haven't seen that detail yet. So I think those are the two big changes that affect property investors. And so there we are. Not really too bad for landlords, which is a change, because normally, landlords are an easy target, aren't they? They're a very easy target to clobber. You don't find landlords having as much sympathy, so the nurses now with the 1% pay rise, big furore and that, and that may be well justified. That's not the point. But when landlords were getting clobbered with extra taxes, the extra 3%, the removal of mortgage interest as a business expense, didn't notice any public clamour then. Didn't notice tens of thousands of people lying in the streets with placards shouting "Save the landlords." So we can see that we're a pretty unloved bunch, really, by the population, and an easy target. Anyway, so got some questions coming on here, and so let's start cracking on. And hey, got a question? Stick it in the chat box, and I'll answer it, cause that's why I'm here. And if you're tuning live, really appreciate you jumping on this morning, starting your week. Maybe you're watching the replay because it's not always convenient for everyone to do that. And if you're watching the replay, hey, just put a hashtag replay in the chat box, so I know you've watched it. That's really good. That helps. Got a few more questions coming in there. I see someone's just. I'm going to jump on there. Yeah, Lord Prosper, save the landlords. I missed it. Maybe it happened. I didn't see it. Yeah, you wait a long time for that, wouldn't you? Yeah. So we're going to start with Clive. Clive's recently joined my advanced training, the Ninja Investor Program. So I'm looking forward to working with you on a a much deeper level, Clive. Bridging for short leases. Okay, so short leases for the rest of you are flats where the leasehold, which usually starts at either 99 or 125 years, and of course it ticks down each year, and it becomes problematic in terms of getting a mortgage when it gets certainly below 70, in some cases below 80 years. There are a big bunch of mortgage lenders that won't lend on a flat if the lease is below 85 years. But that gradually tweaks down year by year, and until you get to into the 50s, 50 years left, it's pretty much impossible to get a mortgage on it. And of course, extending the lease, now not many people may know this, it's not a uniform price to extend the lease. It gets dearer as the lease gets shorter, but not progressively dearer or not on a linear fashion. It gets exponentially more expensive the longer or the shorter the lease is. So short leases can be a big problem. Now, on my advanced training, which Clive is doing, one of the strategies I teach is how to profit from short lease properties by using bridging finance to buy it, extending the lease, exponentially increasing the value, and then refinancing or selling. So a bit of background there for those that are not at that level with me yet. Maybe you will be. So Clive's question is, will the bridger also fund the cost of the lease extension? Yes, they will, Clive. Why would they do that? Because the minute the lease extension becomes real and is implemented, the value jumps up. So it's like jumps from a 40-year lease to a 100-year plus lease. Boom! Now you've got the full value of the property, because short lease flats actually, unusually for property normally either stagnates or increases in value, get capital growth. I mean, short-term market fluctuations aside from that, but property generally increases over time. You have capital growth of varying amounts depending on what part of the country you're in. But a short lease flat is actually a depreciating asset in a level or stagnant market, because it costs more to extend each year you leave it. The value of the flat goes down, and that so when you've got flats less than £50,000, sorry, flats less than 50. When you've got flats less than 50 years on the lease, the value drops quite significantly compared to those with 100 years plus. So yeah, there we are. Thanks for that question, Clive. So we've got a Facebook user here now. I broadcast this through StreamYard, which pings it out to YouTube and different Facebook groups and other Facebook pages. So it spreads it out in different areas. Now, when you're coming through Facebook and you want to make a comment, StreamYard asks you to permission to use your name. If you don't give that permission, it just comes up as Facebook user, and then I find out who it is when I go back checking later on in the day. Okay, so you're an experienced investor, but you lost your non-property income last year, but still managed to get 3 buy-to-lets on single BTL mortgages after losing your income. Okay, yeah, it wasn't easy, but because a lot of lenders don't like that. However, I'm looking to move into a 6-bedroom HMO, but I'm looking at a commercial valuation. Will it be difficult with my circumstances? Okay, so let's look at that. So mortgage lenders tend to like, but standard mainstream buy-to-let mortgage lenders tend to prefer people that are not full-time landlords. They much prefer if you're employed, they will take you if you're self-employed, but they don't like people that rely exclusively on rental income. You know, now their logic is your tenants could leave overnight, and then you've got no income, and then you're not going to be able to pay the mortgage. Now you might say it's a flawed logic, because if you've got 10 properties, the all 10 tenants aren't going to leave at the same time. That's why you've got multiple properties, because you're mitigating your risk of a loss of income, and that's sensible, but it doesn't change how they look at it. They also don't include the fact that if you're employed, you can get made redundant pretty much at as short a notice as a tenant can leave. But again, that doesn't play in their logic as well. So, and in fact, I've got a video. Let me find that video, because this explains how, you know, when you start out in property, you're employed or self-employed, because you're just starting out in property, so you haven't got any property income, and you're attractive to buy-to-let lenders. And the bigger you grow, and particularly when you go full-time, you become unattractive, but attractive to the commercial lenders that you weren't attractive to when you started out. But I'll explain this more in a video. Let me find that, and I'll pop that in here. So where's that one? I'm just gonna see if we can find this. As usual, where you're looking for it, you can't find it. Where might that be? Oh, there we are. 3 types of lender. There we are. Got it. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that in there. So, you know, if you want to find out how your attractiveness to different mortgage lenders, just pop that in there now. You're attractive to different mortgage lenders changes depending on how you earn your income and how many properties you've got over a period of time. That video is going to help. Okay, so now standard buy-to-let mortgage lenders are not going to look at lending on a 6-bedroom HMO. if they look at any at all, and most standard mortgage lenders will only consider single ASTs. But if they consider anything but single ASTs, that they limit it to maximum 4 tenants. So 6-bed HMO, you're not going to be looking at standard buy-to-let mortgage lenders. You're going to be looking at specialist lenders, possibly commercial lenders, but specialist lenders certainly that lend on HMOs of 5 or more bedrooms. Now, they're far less concerned with whether you've got a proper job, you know, a day job, to use a couple of phrases. My mum said to me for years, when are you going to get a proper job, Kevin? So getting a mortgage on a 6-bedroom HMO is not as difficult as if you wanted just a single let AST mortgage. So that's less of a challenge. Now, commercial valuation is a completely different thing. I'm going to line up to do a video on commercial valuations on HMOs, because in a 6-bed HMO, it's by no means a given that you will get a commercial valuation. And hey, I replied to a post on a Facebook group this morning, just talking about that. And you know, the question was, should I go for a bricks and mortar or a commercial valuation on an HMO? My response was, in almost all circumstances, it's not your choice. The mortgage lender's valuer decides whether it gets a bricks and mortar or commercial. And the default position for commercial mortgages of up to 6 beds, default position of HMOs up to 6 bedrooms is it's a bricks and mortar valuation. It has to be exceptional to get a commercial valuation, because here's the principal reason: HMOs are not a commercial property. You know, in like an industrial unit, an office block, a shop, an office. These are commercial properties. People don't live in them. People trade from them. The people that trade from them have a commercial lease of multiple years. Could be 3 years, could be 25 years, anything in between. So, you know, HMOs don't fit that mold. Now, the best way I can describe an HMO is it's a residential property. In most cases, there are exceptions to that. It's a residential property temporarily being used for a commercial purpose. So the question is, if the tenants weren't there internally, what would it look like? Would it look like a family home? Or would it look completely different to a family home? So an office doesn't look like a family home, clearly. And what does your 6-bedroom HMO look like, you know, if the tenants weren't there? And if it looks like a family home internally, it's going to get a bricks and mortar valuation, because that's all it can be sold as. You know, I say this often: lenders, when they give you money, always got one eye on, if you stop paying and we have to repossess you, how do we get our money back? So they're going to be looking at an HMO and saying, right, how do we get rid of this if we have to, you know, on a vacant possession basis? Now, if you're in an Article 4 area where you can only make a new HMO with planning approval, or if you want more than 6 bedrooms, 7 or above, you can only do that with planning approval. That changes the game, because that they are now, you would routinely get a commercial valuation. Another point here, you know, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes, and particularly in more buoyant areas of the country, the commercial valuation we've seen has come out lower than the bricks and mortar valuation. So, you know, HMO valuations are a complex subject. So I think I'll do a video on that, pop it on my YouTube channel. Have you seen my YouTube channel yet? If you're not coming through YouTube, have you seen it? There's over 90 videos, getting on for 100 videos on there now about all sorts of stuff related to property finance. Let me find that for you and pop a link in there. There we are. Let's just do a cut and paste. Pop that in there. There we are. So if you haven't seen my YouTube channel yet, when you finished here, hop over and have a look. And if you like it, subscribe, because I give there's a video comes out every week. And so hop over and do that. So great question there. Thank you about HMOs and commercial valuations and that. So appreciate that. Von says good morning. Morning, Von. There we are. So Clive's back. Let's make sure we don't miss a question here. Easy for me to scroll down too fast, so I'm going back there. If I do miss your question, apologies for that. Right, I think we got it. Okay, Clive's back with another question. Are there any length of short leases that bridges will not fund, e.g. 5 years or remaining? Well, in theory, no, but it's a case-by-case situation, Clive. So bridges are always open to funding something, but here's their big question. And you learnt this in the first module of my Ninja Investor program. The big question bridges ask is, how are you going to give us our money back? So as long as you've got a plausible reason that stacks, and they can see how they're going to get their money back, in most cases they will lend. But it's highly unusual to find a property that's the lease has ticked down as far as 5 years. But you know, if you find one that's really short, and by really short I mean under 20 years, then let me know. You know, ping the details over to me and I'll work with you, Clive. I mean, we're working together anyway, but I'll work with you to see whether, you know, how we can fund that for you. So good. Some say, good to see you back again. What's your prediction for house prices going forward? Hang on a minute. Let me dust out that crystal ball. I've got it down here somewhere. My prediction is they're going to go up or go down or stay the same. I mean, listen, who knows? You might as well ask me for the lottery numbers. You know, anyone that says property prices are going to go up or down or whatever is just expressing an opinion. You know, no one really knows what property prices are going to do. And again, the bit you missed out in your question was over what time period. You know, because the answer changes depending on what time period you're looking at. If you're looking at over a decade, so if you what is the prediction on house prices over, you know, by 2030, of course. So if you're saying, will house prices be higher or lower by 2030, then almost certainly higher. Will they be higher or lower by the end of 2021? Who knows? You know, there's a lot of factors now. You know, the stamp duty holiday that was introduced last July has kept the house market buoyant, hasn't it? You know, there are other factors as well, but that's clearly one factor in keeping prices high. You know, now here's the point about making predictions. Now, I think most people would agree that Savills, the estate agents, know a thing or two about property. You know, they've been at it for, I don't know, decades, certainly, maybe even longer than that. Maybe they've been around for more than a century. So they've got statistics, you know, to prove almost anything you want. Now, go back to almost this time last year. I tuned into a webinar that Savills were doing, and they wheeled out their ace statistician. That's a tough thing to say, isn't it? Statistician. Yeah, there we are. And he pulled up all sorts of historical data to say that although we hadn't had a total shutdown of the economy, remember this was last April, so we were literally less than a month into lockdown one. So although we hadn't had a total shutdown of the economy before, he went back to previous eras of property to say, well, look, when this happened, this was the result. And here was their prediction. So their prediction was that by December 2021, by December 2020, by the end of 2020, the property market would, property prices would fall by 5 to 15%. Now that didn't happen, did it? In fact, the reverse happened. Property prices went up. And, we've all seen this. So, hey, if Savills can't get it right on even, 6 months, or 8 months, let's say, can't get it right projecting 8 months, what chance have I got? So, any prediction is just guesswork. Now at that time in April, Savills didn't know and hadn't factored in that the fact that the Chancellor was going to induce a stamp duty holiday for the first £500,000, and of course that had an effect, didn't it? So predictions are based on at best based on what is known at this moment in time, but other unforeseen factors can come in and skew those predictions. I think if you want to boil it straight down to its most base level, to say, what is the prediction for property in the UK? Well, let's look at is it the macroeconomic situation? Okay, so we're a country of, 66 million people, on a pretty small landmass comparatively. And the comparison is always with France. France has got a similar population. It's in the 60 millions. I haven't got the exact number there, but it's comparable. But it has 6 times the landmass of the UK. So in other words, French people have 6 times as much space as we have to live in this country. Now, you can then assume that places to live are at a premium in the UK compared to France. And for a number of years, the requirement for new homes, whether they're new build or greenfield, brownfield, or conversions of existing properties, has been an extra 300,000 homes a year are needed to keep pace with the demand. It's an old supply and demand issue. Never yet hit that. So through successive governments, successive initiatives, never yet hit 300,000 a year. So there's a shortfall every year. So what is that saying? It's saying that we live on a comparatively overcrowded island where there's a continuing excess of demand that outstrips supply. Now, I'm not an economist, but I would imagine an economist would tell you that when you have demand exceeding and outstripping supply, prices rise. So logic says that long term, i.e. over the next decade, over this decade until 2030, you would expect prices to rise simply because there's a greater demand for places to live, that's to buy or to rent, than there is supply. Very simple. Okay. So if you're, well, that's my half hour and up, and I've still got a load of questions here, so I'm going to hang on. If you're enjoying this, I actually do this every week, every Monday. So you're welcome to either watch live or watch the replay. But I also run a Facebook group called Recycle Your Cash, because most of what I talk about is how to be smart with your money, how to build a portfolio from a single pot of cash. If you're not a member of that, if you're not coming through that group here this morning, let me find that. You know, if you're interested in this sort of stuff, well, come and join us. We've got a nice little group going on there. Well, let's just pop that in the old chat box. There we are. So come and join us at the Recycle Your Cash Facebook group. We've got we're pushing 1,000 people in there now. So okay, there's bigger groups, I know that, but we're growing. Anyway, so Tarek says good morning. Morning, Tarek. Clive's back with another question. You're getting your share in this morning, aren't you, Clive? What are the first steps on finding a property with a short lease? Here's a great first step, Clive. Talk to an estate agent and say, hey, have you got any short lease flats? And if they have, they'll tell you. Of course, you can search on Rightmove or Zoopla, and you know they've got keywords. You know this. You were on the. Oh, actually, you're not. I'm doing that this Thursday, aren't I? So we're going to do this this Thursday evening, Clive, because people that have recently invested in my Ninja Investor program, advanced training, one of the first things I do with them when they sign up is we have a group Zoom session, and I do a Facebook, not Facebook, Rightmove live, and I show you how to reduce the time you waste on Rightmove or Zoopla looking for deals, how to cut that time down by a minimum 50%, and usually more than that. Now, when you've got the tight focus that people that train with me have, you can decide in less than 10 seconds by just looking at the first layer of the information on Rightmove or Zoopla, whether it's a deal or not. So this is we're going to do this. I'm going to send you the invitation out, Clive, probably today or tomorrow. Probably tomorrow, actually. So we can look at this on how you find short leases. So do you require a RICS valuation as part of the due diligence, or is the online calculator sufficient? Yeah, so you can Google sites that give you you know, put in some coordinates and it will say this is how much to extend the lease. Clive, never rely on those. You'd always, and it's not a RICS valuation you want. RICS valuers are not experienced enough to calculate the cost of extending a lease. You need a leasehold enfranchisement surveyor. It's a specialist thing. We can talk about that because I'm going to be helping you find these deals and structuring these deals and financing these deals. Good. Okay, but good questions. Right, moving down. Will, good to see you again. One of my Monday morning regulars. Good to see you. Can you explain how a bridger can assist with an auction sale? Yeah, they lend the money. That's how they assist. You have the winning bid at auction. You got, in most cases, 28 days to complete. A bridger will give you the money less your deposit within that time frame. How does the valuation go? The bridger sends their valuer out to value the property after you've had the winning bid. But if you're asking what is the valuation, well, at best it's going to be that you've paid market value. Because if you buy, here's Bridger's view. If you've been competing with other investors in an open auction room and yours is the winning bid, that's the market value, whether you think it is or not. Because if it was worth more, you wouldn't have had the winning bid. Someone would have bid higher. Now, very occasionally, we've seen that Bridgers say, hey, you've overpaid for this. So actually the winning bid isn't the market value. It's less than that. It doesn't happen very often, but it is possible. Thanks for your question. Robert, there we are. Love your content. Do you really? Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. I'm glad you do. Keep plugging in. You come through YouTube. So have you subscribed? Have you subscribed to my YouTube channel yet? And are you working your way through that nearly 100 videos on there? How far have you got? So is it possible to get a bridging loan for a refurb on your main residential property? In principle, yes, it is. It would depend on the percentage that you're geared. So what level of mortgage have you got compared to the value? It gets difficult, Robert, if your mortgage is above 50% of the value. But if you want to ping me a message privately, then I don't expect you. We can if you want to, but I don't expect you to put all your numbers into this forum. But ping me a message privately, and I'll run through whether it's possible for you. Now, here's the best place to get hold of me. I've got a Facebook page called Kevin Wright, Property Finance Expert. People inbox me there all the time, and I'm very happy to, I check that on a daily basis. So message me, just putting this into the chat there, Robert. So feel free to message me. Give me your numbers, tell me what your property's worth, tell me what your mortgage is, and I'll tell you how much you can borrow, and also how much you want to borrow for the refurb. So tell me how much you want to borrow, and I'll tell you if it's possible on your main residence property. Now, the other point of that is bridges are only going to lend if you can afford to repay them. Now, so this is a bit more tricky on your main residence, because what they would need to know is they would need to have a decision in principle from either a new mortgage lender or your current mortgage lender to say that you can get a mortgage or further advance, let's say, big enough to pay them back. So even if you've got the equity in your property, you still may not be able to get a bridging loan unless you can show that you've got sufficient income to be able to increase your mortgage by enough to repay the bridger. But so I don't expect you to put all that stuff out publicly. So just ping me a message privately with all what you're trying to do and give me those numbers, and I'll work through with you and let you know if it's possible or not. But thanks for coming on, and thanks for your question. There we are. Adib, there we are. I have a property, Rick's valued at 100K. Okay, good. I can buy it below market value at 75K. Hey, great. A bridging lender will lend me 85% of the market value. Yes, that would be a market value bridger, because they're lending you based on the 100K. Still unusual to get 85. Most bridgers won't do 85, but I got an idea on the one that you might be using for that. Okay, so that's the situation. Here's the question: can I exit onto a buy-to-let mortgage at the open market value of 100,000 if minimal work is done? Answer: no, you can't. Let me explain why. Okay, so this is a now, have I done a video on that? I think I might have done. I'm pretty sure I did a video on this. Yeah, I did it actually a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to stick this in here for you. I'm going to give you a quick explanation now, but go watch this video to find out why this is a flawed strategy that doesn't work on residential properties. Okay, so the video's in there. Go watch that afterwards. And if anyone else is watching and you're saying, hey, does this work as a strategy? Watch that video to see why it doesn't work. But here's what's going to happen. Oops, let's put you back on there. So you're going to go to a mortgage lender and say, hey, can I have a mortgage? Can I have a 75% mortgage because I've got a property worth £100,000? Here's my RICS valuation that confirms that. And they're going to say, yes, but you bought it at 75, didn't you? So can you show us, in the property, show us what you've done to the property since you bought it that's added 25,000 to the value? So what have you done? And you're going to say, well, virtually nothing. And they're going to say, okay, well, we don't accept buying cheap as a valid reason to increase the value. So what actually have you done? If you spent 3,000 or 4,000, okay, we're going to value it at 80. No, we're not going to value it at 100 because you haven't done work that justifies a 25,000 increase. So you're not common in thinking this out as a strategy. I did see people doing that frequently, which is why I've done that video on it. So go watch that video and you'll see why it's why this isn't a strategy that a viable strategy that you can work. Okay, a couple of people more coming on there with mornings, Chris and Clement. Good to see you. Okay. So Tarek says, what happens if you default on the loan? Do you get your deposit back? What loan, Tarek? You want to tell me what loan? Your next question is, or do you lose everything? Well, if you want to tell me what loan you're talking about, but if you default on, are you talking about a bridging loan or a personal loan? Be a bit more specific, Tarek, and I'll be happy to answer your question. Making sure I haven't missed anyone. No, it looks like I've got everyone so far. So scrolling down. There we are. Okay, so Facebook user there. Okay, so I'm going to disappear behind that, but I'm sure you want to read the question rather than look at my mug. So, morning, Kevin. Good morning. So, Facebook user, that's because you haven't given StreamYard permission to use your name. So, I'll check out your name when I go through the comments later today. I have 3 buy-to-lets, and I have my own cash of about 30k. Okay, good progress. One of buy-to-let, I want to do a 2-story extension with a loss conversion. Okay. Yeah, I understand that. Presumably at the rear of the property. Yep, got that. To get a 70k difference, what are my options? Property value will increase after refurbishment by 100k. Okay. So, so that's so I think this is a question. Are you saying will the property value increase by 100k? Surely. Don't know. You'd need to check that out with a RICS valuer if that's the question. And if it is only going to increase by 100k, you would question. The obvious question is, why bother? You're only going to do big stuff to a property like 2-story extensions if you get an exponential increase on the value. If you're spending 100k, you would want it to go up by at least 150k, I'd have thought. Otherwise, quite simply, what's the point? What's the point in spending 100,000 to increase by 100,000? You might as well keep your 100,000. Don't borrow the 100,000, because remember, if you haven't got 100,000 cash, and you haven't, you're going to have borrowing costs on that 100,000. So you really need to get, at least it to be worth it. If you're going to spend 100, it's got to be worth 150. Okay. Current property is worth 325. Mortgage value is 214. Let me get my little calculator out here. Look, here it is. Okay. So bridging's not going to work because your mortgage is already above the limit that bridgers would lend. Your mortgage lender probably wouldn't lend, certainly wouldn't lend you 70k, or certainly wouldn't lend you 100k, because your mortgage. So this is a bit of a chicken and egg situation. It's going to be a tough one to crack. So essentially, you've got to borrow the money, not commercially, because it doesn't stack commercially. You've got to borrow the money privately to then be able to get a bigger mortgage to pay back that money. Now, what you also need to check is that, again, you wouldn't do this if you're going to spend 100 grand, you wouldn't do this unless you were increasing the value by at least 150, I don't think. But you'd also need to check before you went down this road what the increased and enlarged property would rent for, and is that rent big enough to get that uplift to pay back the money you borrowed. So this is going to be quite a tough nut to crack. Again, if you want to message me privately using that link that I gave in there, the property finance expert one, I'll go through this in more detail with you and see if we can make it work. If we make it work, we're happy to broker it for you. But again, this is not as simple as it might seem. Okay, another Facebook user. If I'm refurbishing a property and flipping it, what kind of insurance will I need? Well, now I deal with finance, and insurance is a different part of finance. So you need to be really positioning this to an insurance broker, and I'm not an insurance broker. So you need to be asking that question to an insurance broker. But clearly you've got to insure the property against damage. So you need to take out some sort of works, but it won't be just building insurance. So buildings insurance is not sufficient to cover the refurb work. So you need to speak to a specialist insurance broker to get commercial cover based on the work you're doing. Okay. Thanks for your question. Have we got any more? Oh yeah. All right. So okay. So Tarek's come back with a bridging loan. Okay. Right. So a bridging loan. So now we know that. Let's go back to where your question was here. Okay. So what happens if you default on a bridging loan? Do you get your deposit back? Probably not, Tarek. So what happens if you default on a bridging loan? Well, bridgers will give you a chance to recoup it. So they'll say to you, right, what do you need to do? Now you've either got to sell it or refinance it, and different bridgers will be more understanding of that and cut you some slack and allow you to do one or the other. But it will come to a point where if you can't refinance it and you can't sell it, they will repossess the property. And if they repossess it, now, by that time, your interest would have been building up, and your debt would have been increasing. And then they're just going to sell it. And all they're interested in, at that point, they're not interested in your deposit, Tarek. All they're interested in is getting their money back. So as long as they get themselves repaid, then it's certainly possible you could lose all the money you've put into it and all that you've paid the bridger in the meantime. Yeah. So what's the lesson there is be very diligent on the plausibility of any project that you take on before you take a bridging loan. And for people that are working with me and working with us as brokers, we certainly do that because we're not in the business of making money when it's clear that you're going to lose money. So if you've got a rubbish deal, then we're going to tell you this doesn't make sense. What we can see here, you're going to just lose money doing this deal. So don't do it. Okay, but I understand your question now. Right, still got a few to go down. Tarek's back. Right, okay, another one. If I purchased commercial property using bridging finance, yep, that's perfectly possible. And then leased it to a blue chip tenant like Asda on a long lease. Would I get an uplift in value? Yes, and probably a pretty significant uplift in value, Tarek, because commercial properties, not HMOs, proper commercial properties are valued as a multiple of their income. Now, that multiple depends on a number of varying factors, but one of them is the strength of the tenant. So if you got it as as an Asda, I don't know what it's Tesco's Express, isn't it? And I think it's Sainsbury's Local. I don't know what the Asda's version of that is. What's their brand name? But whatever it is, if you get an A grade tenant, blue chip tenant in there, the income multiple that a commercial value will apply to that property is significantly greater than if you got just a local, one man, I don't know, Joe's Barbers or something like that. So yeah, you'd get a much higher value. And the other point is, you see now, if you bought a vacant commercial property, then it gets valued at what they call vacant possession value. So there is no business in it, so you can't value it based on the business. You just value the structure. And that's a big difference between commercial and resi. See, if you buy a residential property that's not tenanted, and then you tenant it, it makes no difference to the price. Commercial, it can make a massive difference. So yeah, and we've done a number of bridging deals, Tarek, where someone's done exactly this. Bought a vacant commercial property, stuck a tenant in there, whether it's a blue chip tenant or not, doesn't matter. You're going to get an uplift in value, but a blue chip tenant, you're going to get a bigger uplift in value. So is this just an idle inquiry, Tarek, or have you actually got a deal in mind for this? If you've got a deal in mind, then message me on the link I gave, the Property Finance Expert link, and let's talk about it, and let's help you make this deal a reality. Love to do that for you. JPP says morning JPP. There we are. Matthew, there we are. What are the chances of getting a commercial mortgage when changing use close from C3 to C2, but no commercial experience? So, okay, what commercial mortgage lenders are looking for, Matthew, is landlord experience. Now, you don't have to have commercial property experience, but you just have to have a landlord. Now, most of them want to see that you've been a landlord for a minimum of 12 months. A few want for 2 years, and even fewer want 3 years landlord experience. But what they're looking at is, do you know how to be a landlord, and do you like it? So first-time landlords, commercial lenders invariably don't lend to. So if you're changing the use class, would this have to be purchased with a bridge, development finance, or purchased with cash? Okay, so unless you've got a tenanted property, tenanted income producing property, commercial mortgage lenders don't lend. So they don't lend on vacant properties. They don't lend on properties that don't produce an income. So it would have to be with cash or bridging finance. Development finance, if you're just getting a change of use, it's not development finance because you're not doing any development. You're just changing the classification. So yeah, so you cash or bridging to buy it, get your tenants in there in whatever way you're doing it, and then you can get a commercial mortgage as long as you've got landlord experience. If you haven't got landlord experience, there are probably some workarounds. So again, as I've said to other people, Matthew, if you want to, this is a real thing you're trying to do, then message me privately, and we'll help you. Good. Okay, thanks for your question. I've got still more for you. Yep. Carlo. Hello, Carlo. Someone else on my Ninja Investor program. So good to see you, Carlo. Do you think the Bank of England base rate will still drop? Well, it's at 0.01, isn't it, right now? So, hey, it hasn't got far to drop, has it? And, you know, it's a bit like the question earlier, what's going to happen to property prices? Well, you know, to have the answer to that question, Carlo, you need to be part of the Bank of England committee. Base rates would drop. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. They can't drop much further without going negative. You know, and going negative is a really big big decision, isn't it? In other words, if you go into negative interest rates, then any money you've got on a deposit, you have to pay the bank to store your money. Now, that's never happened in 300 years. So it would have to be a pretty drastic decision for the Bank of England to go into charging a negative interest rate. Can't see that happening, but what do I know? As I say, even Savills can't tell where the mortgage market's going in a few months' time, so, and get that right. So, you know, what chance have I got? Jerry, haven't seen you around for a while. Good to see you. There we are. I am all right, actually. Yeah, I'm pretty good, actually. Short lease. I would like to extend your lease, okay, from 69 years via the non-statutory route. Okay, the statutory route is issue a Section 42 notice. Non-statutory route is you just get in touch with the freeholder and say, hey, can we have a chat about extending the lease? And they can say, no, get lost. Or they can say, yeah, let's talk. What is a good number of years to ask for? And how would, okay, so a good number of years to ask for is more than 100, put it back over 100, you know? So you want to be, you know, don't, having it for 10 years doesn't achieve anything. So you want to be pushing it back to plus 100 years. And how would incentivize them with more ground rent so they agree to a non-statutory extension? Mate, I mean, you know, you're dealing with, you know, either an individual or a company, depending whether it's a corporate freeholder or an individual freeholder. Everything's on the table. You know, it's up to them and up to you to agree what you want, you know, the terms of the agreement, because it's voluntary. If you're going down the statutory route, it's a set 90 years. So, you know, everything's in and nothing's out. You know, you can ask for whatever you want. They can ask for whatever they want. And if you don't agree, you don't agree. And either of you can walk away without agreement. So, you know, it's that loose, Jerry. But you should certainly ask for at least a minimum 30 years on top of your lease. Don't go for less than 30 years. Anyway, thanks for your question. Okay, so IPE Mac or MC. Is it possible to remortgage a residential property if you've got no income? Really short answer, no. The FCA lean very heavily on lenders to lend responsibly. And lending responsibly is only lending what someone can afford to repay on a monthly basis. No income, you can't afford a monthly payment. So no, not possible at all. Thanks for your question, though. Have we got any more? Yeah, here we go. Another Facebook user. I'll find out who you are. We name when I drill down later today. I know I've spoken to you about various lending before, bridge or development. Okay, thank you. I want to know if you think it makes more sense to buy, refurb and flip, or use the money we have for those into bigger developments, 1 to 5 dwellings. Okay. So, well, let's look at the different ways to do it. In one respect, you make the same you make bigger profit for doing the same amount of work. Okay, but it's bigger. But so, for example, you know, if you did a refurb on a 100,000 property or a 300,000 property, it's pretty much the same work, isn't it? But you're going to make more profit on a 300,000 property than 100,000. So on that basis, it makes sense. But if you're doing developments, so 1 to 5 dwelling, so now you're talking about new builds, there again, yes, there's cost savings, isn't there? Because if you've got your tradesman, each tradesman that comes in, you know, if you can get them to do 2, 3, 4 at the same time, you're going to get cost savings rather than getting them back to do each one. So usually you can make bigger profits. So it makes sense to go large, as McDonald's tend to say, if you can. But of course, now there we are. You're putting your eggs in one basket. That's the other side of that, because now if you mess this up, you've messed the whole thing up. Whereas if you've got, you know, different separate projects, even running simultaneously, you could mess up one but not the other. So there's a virtue in diversity as well. So pretty much down to your attitude to risk. Jason says good morning. Morning, Jason. Charlotte says good morning. Good morning. JC there. I think remember seeing you before, so good to see you back again. A lot of properties are selling within 24 hours in today's market. Yep, they are. What's your advice to investors regarding finding below market value deals today, or should we wait until things calm down? Well, the advice is don't look for what everyone else is looking for. If you go chasing properties that masses of people are interested in, then yeah, you're going to find it really difficult, maybe impossible, to get below market value deals because you've got too much competition. So what's your advice? Look for properties that other people don't look for. Now, that's fundamental to what I teach on my Ninja Investor program, my advanced level training, because we look predominantly at unmortgageable properties. And as Clive's going to find out on Thursday night when we drill down on some of these properties don't sell within 24 hours. Some of them don't sell within 24 months. So find problem properties that you can fix the problem, and that's how you find below market value deals. Give you, for example, two of my students on my Ninja Investor program last week. One of them found a short lease flat. I've been talking about short lease flats. Asking price 420,000, offer accepted 358, and it's been on the market for months. Another dilapidated bungalow, originally marketed last summer at 254. No one bought it. Dropped the price to 230. Offer accepted 190. So there's two below market value deals that my students have found in the last few weeks and had their offers accepted literally last week. And so there we are. Both below market value deals, but not the deals that everyone's looking for. So, you got to decide where you're going to play. You want to play with the masses? Then that's what's going to happen, JC. You're going to find you're competing with stuff that's selling not only in 24 hours, but probably above asking price. So, James Kahn, the ex-Drabin Dens, I quote this saying a lot because I love it. He said, observe the masses, do the opposite. Want to find below market value deals, JC? That's the answer. Observe the masses, what properties they're looking for, and don't play that game. Do the opposite. And I've been teaching people how to do that since 2013. So what's that, 8 years? So if you want to learn more about that, then ping me a private message. Thanks for your question. Demetrius says, I'm a first-time buyer. Okay. I'm a first-time buyer and has claimed universal credit for 2 months and furlough for 2 months. I'm back on track. Would it affect my chances of getting a mortgage? Yes, it would. So some mortgage lenders are going to want to see that you're back on track for longer. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't get a mortgage, but you're not going to meet every lender's criteria. Tarek's going to drop me a message. Yeah, please do, Tarek. And, let's examine this, because it sounds like you might have an interesting deal. Then I'd love to work with you and help you on it. There we are. So Aston, there we are. Aston, good to see you. Aston's someone else on my Ninja Investor program, and we're looking at a very interesting deal with you at the moment, aren't we, Aston? Would purchasing and then ripping a kitchen out of a house with 2 kitchens be enough work to refinance on a buy-to-let? Okay, so you've learned from module 1 of my Ninja Investor program that properties with multiple kitchens are tough, if not impossible, to mortgage with main residents or standard buy-to-let lenders. You need specialists or HMOs, because the normal lenders don't lend on multiple self-contained units on a single title. And you got 2 kitchens, you're halfway to converting it to at least 2 self-contained units. Okay, so would just ripping the kitchen out work? Okay, the answer is, would that make it ready to rent? So if that made it ready to rent, then it probably could work. If it didn't, you'd need to do more work. And if you're going to flip it, is it in a condition that would-be buyers are going to want to buy? Remember, if you're flipping a property, rather than renting it, then you've got to convince someone to part with tens, possibly, depending on the area, hundreds of thousands of pounds. If you're, as a buyer, if you're renting it, you've got to convince a tenant to part with a few £100s a month. It's a different proposition, isn't it? So, if you're flipping a property, the condition of it, you've got to raise the bar higher to get someone to spend tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds. The bar can be lower if you're only convincing a tenant to spend a few £100s a month to rent it. Good. So I see we've gone over the hour again today. If you've enjoyed this, come along next week, because I'm here again, 8:30 next week, and I'm going to do this all again. And one other thing, I've been doing this for nearly a year. I've got now well over 50 hours worth of content of this. If you think it'd be a great idea to have all of this like a property finance Wikipedia, where you can just tap into this type of wording, a bit like you do on Facebook or not Facebook, a bit like you do on Rightmove or Zoopla. Just type a search word in and up comes stuff. Well, hey, I've got that. My Fiverr tribe. You just pay £5 a month, and apart from other benefits, you get access to all the backlog, all the back catalogue of these Monday morning Q&As. And you just type a word in. So if you want to type in, I don't know, HMOs or commercial valuations, there we are, we've had that. So if you want to find every conversation I've had about commercial valuations, you just type commercial valuations into the search bar, press the button, and then bing, 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 up comes every time I've mentioned commercial valuations in the last year. That sounds like a great idea. Then come and join Fiverr Tribe. Let me put you a link in here. Now, there's other benefits as well within Fiverr Tribe, but hey, just this is worth a £5 a month, isn't it? Surely, if Costa Coffee was open, you couldn't even buy a couple of coffees for that, could you? Not long to go now, before it opens, is it? Okay, I thought I'd finished. Got some more questions in there, so Okay, my commitment is I'll stay and answer all the questions. So there we are. Chris, yeah, I knew you was here. You said hello earlier. Built up a pot of cash over the last 12 months. Good. We'll remortgage one property as you've refurbed it. Not desperate for the money. Should I remortgage now or wait? Well, as long as you've owned the property for 6 months, why wait? If the refurb's finished and you've owned the property for more than 6 months, you should be able to remortgage it. Or maybe if you've got a mortgage already, get a further advance. That'd be cheaper than remortgaging it. Stick with your current lender. So, yeah, I don't see why you would want to wait. The only time, if you didn't want to wait, or if you hadn't finished the refurb or you hadn't owned it 6 months, yeah, probably better to wait. Other than that, no, go for it. If you need any help on that, Chris, ping me a message in the where I put on my property finance expert, and love to help you on that. Yes. Okay, so the 2 kitchens. The garage was converted to a granny flat and is pristine, but it's been on the market for 3 years. See, who was that was asking about JC? There we are. This one hasn't gone in 24 hours. It's been stuck on the market for 3 years. Why? Because you can't get a mortgage on it. That's why. So, see, Aston's done Aston's done my training, so he knows this. But he's observed the masses, done the opposite. He's looked for a property that's got a problem. The problem is the granny flat. Now, any buy-to-let lender or any main mortgage lender is going to say, you've got a self-contained granny flat. We know what you're going to do. You're going to rent that out. And we don't allow you to rent out part of your house on a self-contained basis. We allow you to have lodgers if you're a main residence, but not if they've got their own self-contained flat with its own entrance. So, yeah, I think you found a deal there, Aston, because, hey, guess what happens if you can't sell your house for 3 years? You get more motivated to accept a lower price, don't you? So, Aston, I think you got another deal there. So let's let's ping me all the details. You've got my email address. We work together already. Let's see if we can make this into a deal. You're into holiday lets. Maybe we can make it another one of your holiday lets. Good. Navjot, good. There we are. Good to see you. If I want to change my main residence and buy and move another house and change my existing residential mortgage to a buy-to-let mortgage, can I take money out if the property was increased in value? Yeah, it should be able to, Navjot. Yeah, it should be able. It's called a consumer buy-to-let, what you're trying to do there. And actually, it's a let-to-buy mortgage because you're letting your main residence to buy another property. So, yeah, can do that. So you got my contact details in the chat box there. So just ping me a message and we'd love to help you broker that. Great. There we are. Have we got any more? Okay, no further advance. Okay, so then it'd be a remortgage then, Chris. So yeah, if you want us to remortgage that for you, love to broker that for you. Great content as always. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it, and hopefully the rest of the people here are too. Whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching the replay, I hope you're enjoying it. Right, so we appear to have come to the end of the questions for today. So that means I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to wish you a fantastic week. Hope you have whatever you're doing, property-wise. Hope it's really productive. And like some of the people I've been speaking about, hopefully you can get an offer accepted on a below market value deal this week, like a couple of my students did last week. So I'll be back next Monday morning, 8:30, with another Q&A. And if you need to contact me, just ping me a message in the chat box here. And let's talk. So have a brilliant week. See you next week.